Hey everybody, I'm going to do a really quick short video. This is not supposed to be an instruction. It's just my OCD is killing me because I have one spare bullet for my 357 Magnum that isn't loaded. And I have one of those personalities where that's just going to irk me until it gets mated up with its good buddy, case, powder, and primer. And I don't think I've ever really talked much about reloading on the show before, a little here and there. I hand load my own ammunition. I do it to save cost, and I'll do a blog post in the near future about exactly how much you can stand to save on different ammunition types. I'll say that for 357 Magnum in particular, I have a pretty substantial cost savings. I couldn't afford to shoot 357 Magnum as often as I do if I had to pay full price for the ammo. Hand loading it like I do is a substantial cost savings. It gives me the ability to tailor the round specifically to what I want to do with it. In this case, this is just Planket ammo with a 125 gram flat point, accurate number 7, which is a good Magnum powder, but it's not super slow, so it works well in my 4-inch barrel, and just CCI Magnum pistol primers. But I'm going to reposition the camera, give you a really quick overview of this, of the process. This is going to be really quick and to the point, though, because I only have one round to load. So expect lots and lots of cutting and fading, because I'm not going to make y'all sit through all the setup process. But in the future, if y'all are interested in me doing a little bit bigger, more involved video on how to hand load, just reach out to me on Facebook or leave a comment on the video, and maybe I'll do something a little more involved in the future. Alright, now, first and foremost, let's talk about the tools. Now, obviously, we need a press, and that's what this big old green thing is. This is a Rock Chucker Supreme, but you can get into Lee's and Dillon's, and we'll do a whole article on the various bits of equipment that are out there for hand loading. There's a lot out there, a lot of different brands, a lot of different quality levels. They're all a little bit different, but the beauty is they had the bright idea years ago to standardize the thread size on a lot of these dies. So I use RCBS dies on an RCBS press, but if for instance I wound up getting Lee dies or Hornady, those dies can all fit into this press, not an issue. So you're not bound to use all your equipment from a single manufacturer. You can mix and match if you want. But I've got a set of RCBS dies, which we'll thread in here. We'll go ahead and stick the, well, I'm not going to stick it in the press because I've already done some of these steps. But this is your sizing and decapping die. This little pin right here is what punches out the primer. And this actually, as the brass goes up into the die, forces it back down to the right size. A lot of people don't realize that the brass slightly expands when you fire it. It'll actually form fit to the size of your chamber. The dies, your sizing die's purpose is to shrink it back down to the correct size. That way it'll go in and out of the chamber easily. Now, after that step is done, what we need to do is, this is the shell holder. It literally just holds the brass by the rim. So that way the ram on your press can push it up and out of the die. This is an expanding die. The whole purpose of this is to very slightly expand the rim of this case so that this bullet will fit into it. And right now, I don't know how well you can see it on the camera, but that bullet will not fit into this case because the case has been shrunk down to the correct spec, but that correct spec is smaller than what the outside diameter of this bullet is. So we're going to stick it into the shell holder, push it up into the die and pull it out, and now that bullet, just like that, now fits in there. We're now ready to move on to the next step, which is nothing we're going to do here on the press. It can be done on the press, but as far as priming goes, I'm not a big fan of priming on the press. I prefer to use a hand primer, which is this little gizmo right here. And I'm about to cut to getting this thing set up because it takes a minute and I don't want to put y'all through all that. But this hand primer allows us to take a primer and shove it up into the primer pocket on this case, and then we're ready for the next step. Alright, now, ordinarily I would be priming a whole bunch more cases than just one. So this is kind of going to be a waste of time and effort, but I'll do it anyway. What we do is we place a primer, set that off on the side, into this tray. You make sure that it's pointing up, so that way the little brass part is sticking straight up. The bottom of the cup that the firing pin hits will be facing down, and then you put the lid on top to secure all these in place. And like I said, normally I would have 50 or 100 or more primers in here. I think it'll hold 150 or 200. I usually do mine in batches of 150. I know it'll hold that many. But you set this into the side of this hand primer, and then just a slight tilt, and y'all can't see it, but I can. That primer is now sitting on top of the little bitty ram in here, and all we have to do is insert this in the shell holder, give it a squeeze until you feel it stop, and this is why I like using a hand primer. There's no debating when that primer is at the right spot, because it will stop, and you have to really wrench on it to get it in there any tighter, and you don't need to. As soon as it bottoms out, you're good. You release, you let go, and now we have a primer in the primer pocket. And that's it as far as hand priming. You can also use the press to prime. Some manufacturers do a little bit better job of that, and some don't. With a single stage, I don't see a lot of use in priming on the press. I'd rather just do by hand. But for those of you who say have issues with hand dexterity or carpal tunnel or anything, this might be a good option for you, because this takes a lot less hand strength because you get to use your whole arm to work the press. I like doing it by hand because I get better feel on the round. Make your own decision. But I'm showing you that this is one method. Maybe in a longer video I'll actually set this up to do priming on the press. I've taken everything off because I never use it anymore. But I have all the parts in the box. It gets in the way if it's not in use. But let me get all this set up and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, now I've done a little bit of putting things away, the things I don't really need. I've got the die installed back in the press. I have the shell holder back in the press because I had to use that with the hand primer. So I am ready to stick a bullet into this case, except we're missing some. We need powder. Now, as far as powder goes, we have a couple of different options. One being that Lee in particular, they have a system of little powder dippers, and if you use their data, they'll actually tell you, like, this dipper and this powder is good for this round. They use a volumetric method of dispensing powder rather than what I'm going to do here, which is actually dispensing it by weight. And I'm going to tell you now, I'm omitting a lot of the setup steps because, like, my die's already set up. I just reloaded through 7 Magnum a couple of days ago, and I know that this is all set correctly. I know that this should be set dead on for 11.2 grains of powder, and I'm getting that load out of a reloading manual. So I know it's a safe round. I've shot it out of my firearm and the gun didn't blow up, so I know it's all good. But if you're not in that position, what you need to do, and y'all can't see it because I didn't think far enough ahead to actually get it in the frame. But up here on the wall, I have a shelf that keeps my scale out of the way of everything else. And we'll cut to a picture of the scale and everything real quick just so you can see it, but I'm not going to show you how to use a balance beam scale. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to dispense one measure of powder into this case, and that's just lifting the handle up and pulling it back down. It spins a drum in here that has a cavity, and you use this to precisely calibrate the cavity to dispense the correct volume of powder. We talked earlier about how Lee dispensed their powder volumetrically. Well, I have to dispense a volume of powder, but then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to weigh that volume of powder to make sure that is the correct weight that I'm looking for. And what I'm looking for is 11.2 grains. On this balance beam scale, I'll take another picture of it when I'm done. You have some variance in the scale, and a little bit high, a little bit low is not a huge problem. I prefer to be a little bit under on the charge than a little bit over, just for safety's sake. But that is telling me that the amount of powder that I have queued up on the powder throw is the correct amount for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my handy dandy funnel here, drop that powder into the round, and again, if I were doing a bunch of these, I would honestly check every so many rounds just to make sure that I'm not having an issue with the powder clumping up or anything, but I wouldn't sit here and measure every last charge under normal circumstances. Unless I was doing like my precision rifle rounds, then I weigh every single charge. Otherwise, I'm just going to get it as close to bang on as possible. I'm going to load a bunch of rounds. I'll check, say, every 20 or 30 charges, and if that comes back to what it should be, I keep on going. But once we have primer, powder, the round has been expanded so the bullet actually fits in there, the only thing left to do is to set this in the ram, run the press handle all the way down and all the way back up, and just like that, we have a properly loaded round of ammunition. It's going to be difficult to show on here, but I will get a picture of it, but there's a slight crimp applied to this. The crimp is dictated by where you position this die. As a matter of fact, a lot of setting up this equipment is setting up the dies, reading instructions, measuring things. Hand loading is a wonderful hobby to get into, and if you're a guy that likes to shoot a lot, all the better, because the product of your hobby, you get to go out and put down range, which is even more fun, and it saves I hate to say it saves money, because every round of ammunition I shoot costs me less than if I bought it factory. But unfortunately, I wind up shooting more, so I don't really save any money. That's kind of the curse of hand loading. You don't really save money doing it. You just shoot a lot more, which is fine. But I'm going to keep this short and quick and to the point. If you're interested in hand loading, if you're curious, leave me some comments, and if I get enough listener response, I'll do a more involved video on hand loading and get into some of the setup and some of the little particulars I skipped in the process of this quick little video. This is more just kind of show you, so that you're not intimidated by it, that the equipment's fairly simple, the process isn't complicated. I'm doing this in my garage, and I can tell you, after having shot thousands of rounds of ammunition, I haven't hurt myself yet, so it's very doable if you pay attention to what you're doing. But leave some comments, let me know what you think. If you want to see more, I'll do a more involved video, and y'all take care of each other out there. I'll see y'all next time.